Howdy, y'all, and welcome to Catholic Not Fascist podcast. Here, we acknowledge both the love and the sins of the Church, while not shying away from the strength and weaknesses within our own humanity.
As we step on a path toward atonement with an open mind and heart full of joy, we are so happy you're joining us. We are your humble hosts. I'm Nicole Secker.
And I'm Megan Larson.
Welcome to Catholic Not Fascist.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Catholic Not Fascist. Today we have the incredible Katie Holler from the Dorthea Project on today. I've got a little bio about her. In no particular order, Katie is a Catholic, mom, wife, social worker, community organizer, professor, and Gilmore Girl enthusiast. I think that's probably the number one. She received a bachelor's in social work from Franciscan University and a master's in social work from the University of Pittsburgh. Her previous experience includes working with survivors of human trafficking and organizing Moms for Universal Childcare. She currently organizes the Dorthea Project, wrangles two small children, and spends way too much time telling her cat to stop eating plastic.
Plastic and my leg.
Way too much time trying to push my cat away from the microphone, but apparently he knows when I'm interviewing with people or interviewing people because he didn't bug me last time either.
Don't speak too soon. Moose will grab the mic.
The video I recorded yesterday, I had to keep him here. Moose. Okay, so tell us about the Dorthea Project. What is it? How did you guys start it? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so the Dorthea Project is really a guiding post for everything that we're doing. Currently, our main issue of focus is immigration and the treatment of immigrants in the United States, but a vision of what will it be like in heaven and how do we start to bring that here to earth now, and not in a weird way, you know? Yeah, that's who we are. I can get into the backstory if you like, or if you want me to pause to respond.
I do want you to get the backstory, but I just have a little note. Earlier this year, somebody wrote I saw a tweet or something that was like, many Christians think their job is to get into heaven, but that's not their job. Their job is to bring heaven to earth. So it's very in line with that.
Well, and that's something. I was in Kroger the other day and I saw a woman wearing a t-shirt that said America needs Jesus or something like a little quippy thing. And immediately I was like, then go be Jesus. In my head, I was like, that's our job. It's we shouldn't be waiting for the second coming or whatever to come and rapture everyone. We are supposed to be Jesus. And so if you're this place needs Jesus, it's because you're supposed to go be him right now. So anyway.
Somebody told me they were talking about the Gospel of Thomas, that if the true presence of Christ had been obvious in the other apostles, Thomas wouldn't have needed to see Jesus for himself.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really good. Yeah.
Really spinning the narrative off of poor Thomas onto all the other disciples.
I think Thomas gets a bad rap. I do. Because I think God is saying, if you believe and you haven't seen, it's because he has blessed you, not because you did something to be blessed. Because he said, blessed are those. So because I don't think God is asking for blind faith.
Cole, how did you actually find the Dorthea Project?
So my former coworker was a part of it. She is from Ohio, and I think somebody knew somebody or something like this. And she's like, hey, you should join these meetings. And I was like, sounds good. And I joined the meetings, and I invited Meg to come in and join the meeting as well. So if you're listening to this and you're like, the Dorthea Project sounds pretty cool, you should invite a friend. You just search Dorthea Project in Google. It's going to be your first result that pops up, or other search engines.
What events have you already been involved in, Nicole, as far as the Dorthea Project?
So we did a day of prayer for Oscar Romero. I'm trying to think if we did anything before that. I think that was the first thing I did. And we here in Missouri, we said the Stations of the Cross in front of our Capitol building here. There was a group of about 10 of us, something like that. And then this past weekend, as Pope Francis called us to pray for peace, the Dorthea Project asked us to organize things. And so me and the friend who invited me, we said a rosary at before Mass with which we captured. Probably a lot of people that didn't realize they were looking into that, but it was great. And we talked about what the Dorthea Project was very briefly before going into this. We took a rosary for peace from I think the Assisi Project. It was based on Pope Francis's prayer for peace, and we use that to do the rosary.
And those are two good organizing approaches right there of like word of mouth, right? Like if there is something you think your friend would like, tell them and invite them into it, invite them into that public step. And then two, know where the people are and go get them, right? Like, the Catholics are going to be getting to church early or staying a little after. So like be there waiting for them with your rosary and with your cards and your conversation. Two great organizing tactics right there.
It worked. We had some people come up and ask us about it afterwards. So
and someone joined. Someone signed up after your guys' event. So I'm going to be reaching out to her. But yeah, you guys.
I have to tell the other person who I'm not naming. But yeah, that's awesome. But that's enough about me. But it's good to have context. Have you participated in any projects yet with the Dorthea Project?
So thanks to you introducing me to this, the only thing I actually joined was the monthly Zoom meetings. And so the only thing I was going to say is, yes, Nicole recruited me. But I really admired the meeting, Katie, and how you led it. And I felt like, unlike many other like meetings that I've been to that felt very like corporate in nature or something, the skill that you bring to this is that it feels very authentic and connecting, which is exactly what the church has been missing for a very long time. And so I really want to compliment your approach. I'm going to say it's very difficult to impress me, and you blew me away. Not only will I be back, but I recruited another person from Kentucky to join. And I want the listeners to stay tuned, and I hope that we can kind of put a link to join the monthly meetings and everything so everyone else can have this awesome experience that I literally just had this past week with y'all. So yes, I can't wait for us to jump in.
We'll definitely make sure to link you.
Yes,
and like
we'll
I
definitely
said,
make sure.
If you Google it, it's going to be the first thing that pops up on like their first page. You can register for the next meeting, which is the first Thursday of every month.
Yes, unless there's a holiday or major feast day, like we pushed back the last one because of Holy Thursday. Okay. But otherwise, first Thursday of the month, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time. Yeah, thank you, Megan. That's so kind of you. I feel like all of our time is so limited. Like no one wants to join another Zoom meeting where you're just being talked at for an hour. And so it's a skill that I have been working on over the last few years of making sure never run a meeting where people are going to leave and say that meeting could have been an email. Because people's time is precious and we want to honor that. So thank you, Megan.
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of inspired you to create this the Dorthea Project?
Yeah, I want to be very clear. Like, I don't think of myself as creating this project. You want to put that because all my role and what I have done is last spring, when the Trump administration was first coming into office, or a couple months after they had been in office, I was on maternity leave with my second baby. And, postpartum is a fragile time for anyone who's had a baby knows that. And I had been, as an organizer, we were watching the Trump administration, kind of preparing for what was going to be happening and thinking about how we could respond. And so as the Trump administration starts to implement their immigration plan of mass detention, mass deportation, revoking protected statuses, all these things that were very concerning to me, I was seeing them play out. And particularly what really struck a nerve was two things. It was one, seeing stories of breastfeeding moms being separated from their babies or being deported without their children. As a breastfeeding mom is terrifying, heartbreaking. You don't know how your baby's going to eat. You don't know if they're going to be okay. So that was one. I saw that and I was like, that's clearly not pro-life. If we are for moms and for babies, that is not it. And two, the Trump administration early on rescinded a policy with basic care directives for pregnant women, postpartum women, their babies, and medically fragile people that have been put in place about just, access to clean water, medical attention, only detaining in extreme circumstances. They got rid of it and they said that policy was no longer in line with their priorities and values. And so those were kind of I don't want to say the tipping point because it had been mounting for a long time, obviously, but that was the moment where I said, I need to do something. And up until that point, I had been really scared to try to organize Catholics, being in a more conservative Catholic area in Steubenville, Ohio. I was very resistant to try to organize Catholics. I was just like, I'm not ready to organize my people yet. But that was the tipping point, in addition to knowing that when it comes to these power-grabbing government administrations, one of the pillars of society that can either uphold it and support it and help it on its way is religion and faith communities. And I just said, I don't want my church to be involved in this in any way from now on, right? From this point forward. And so all I did was make a couple Facebook posts. It was nothing spectacular. I saw on 2 Facebook groups that I was part of, a Catholic Working Moms Facebook group and another Catholic, like a moderate Catholic women's group, which I low-key thought was also a mom's group, which is why I also posted there, because my last organizing experience was organizing Moms for Universal Childcare. And I just always have this perspective of moms will save the world. Moms got this. Like, moms are moral leaders. We look to moms for guidance and direction, and they just have this authority with which they can speak about human dignity. So I was like, moms got this. So I was trying to get moms together, not realizing that I was posting on also just like a women's group. So anyhow, posted on these 2 groups because I saw other Catholic women talking about this and saying this is really scary, posting headlines and saying like, this is bad, this is getting worse. And so I just posted and I said, we're all seeing these things. And it was a lot of different things, right? I addressed like the immigration, but also rolling back environmental protections, attacking free speech, attacking higher education. And I said, if you're seeing this and you're concerned, let's talk about it. And I had dozens of women reaching out to me and saying, yes, like I want to do something. I can't stand by and do nothing. And so I took together a list and I said, let's schedule a meeting and let's talk about it and let's name the moment and we'll go from there. I don't know what's going to come of it, right? I didn't go into it with a plan of, and then we'll start an organization and then we'll get nonprofit status and then we'll do all these, we'll have like a board of directors. It was just, let's get together and talk. And so from that first meeting, we spent the next couple of meetings being very prayerful, very intentional, very discerning about how we wanted to respond and what our lane was in the moment. And we ended up coming with this idea of Catholic social teaching, right? And feeling like not many Catholics knew good Catholic social teaching. They had other areas of their life that were more powerfully influencing their perspective on politics and their perspective on their neighbors and each other. So we came with this theory of change that if more Catholics knew good Catholic social teaching and saw themselves in it, they would be compelled into action, right? That was my own experience. I think a lot of the women in the group had the same experience if they had their eyes open to the social mission of the church, and it kind of changed things for them. And we all, maybe many of us have heard the phrase, the Catholic social teaching is the best kept secret in the Catholic Church, and it's baloney and I hate it, but it's like, well, it shouldn't be a secret, so let's make it not a secret. And so that's how we came. That's the background from my perspective, right? It's just one perspective of the 12 women who were at that first meeting, of the dozens of women who were interested, of the thousands of women who have now joined. So it's one perspective. That's my perspective of how we came together and what set us on the path we're on now.
Magnificent. And I just really want to highlight the intention and the prayerfulness around this gathering, and there is no better foundation for this. And I want to just say something. I'm also in the social work world, as you might know, and this has been such a passion of mine, is like Catholic social teaching is never talked about. Why? And as soon as Nicole told me about y'all, I was like, this is like rocket. Like, this is like the coolest thing, like, since sliced bread. Like, seriously, like I just love this so much.
My friend who got me into this, she was talking about how nobody knows what social teaching is because priests never bring it up. And I had no idea what Catholic social teaching was, despite the fact that I studied international development and I'd worked with organizations like volunteered with organizations like Development and Peace in Canada. I'd multiple times looked at jobs with CRS. I never got hired there, but like, because it's what I studied in school. And I'd never heard of it until I worked for Catholic Charities, because Catholic Charities is very good. Like, usually it's displayed somewhere. They teach all their employees about it. Catholic Charities is very based in Catholic social teaching. So I've worked for 2 different Catholic charities, and both of them I would say that was true of. It does probably depend on your diocese because it's a very local kind of thing. But yeah. When were you introduced to Catholic social teaching?
Yeah, I was introduced to Catholic social teaching at Franciscan University my junior year when I joined the social work program. It was, I don't remember the first class we learned it in, but we talked about it in every single class, right? Like, every paper that we wrote, we had to say, how do the themes of Catholic social teaching apply to this topic? Or how do you understand this policy through the lens of Catholic social teaching? And so we had those 7 themes or principles of Catholic social teaching from the USCCB drilled into our head. And so that was when I was like, wait, this is awesome. It's so clear. It's so concise. It's like, It's nonpartisan, which is like a big gripe I'm on right now, is like, we are supposed to be political, we're not supposed to be partisan, what have you. But yeah, so that was the first time I learned about it, is like in the social work program at Franciscan. And now as a social work instructor at Franciscan, I drill it into my students' heads. So yeah.
And we love you for that. We do. What can you there's probably people listening who have no idea what Catholic social teaching is. What is Catholic social teachings? You're right that it is themes, but like, what are the 7 themes of Catholic social teaching?
Yeah, so Catholic social teaching is derived from the gospel, right? In light of our Catholic tradition, our understanding of, because of who God is and how he came to the world and revealed himself through Jesus Christ, it informs how we should relate to one another, how we should connect with one another and take care of one another. And the 7 themes are life and dignity of the human person, call to family, community, and participation, rights of workers and dignity of work, solidarity, care for God's creation. Let's see, which ones am I missing?
Option for the poor and vulnerable.
Option for the poor and vulnerable. Embarrassing, I forgot that one. And then the last one.
Did you say solidarity?
You think so?
So they are care for God's creation, solidarity. I'm looking at the website. The dignity of work and the rights of workers, option for the poor and vulnerable, rights and responsibilities.
Rights and responsibilities. That's one I forgot. Yeah,
it's not the fun one. It's got responsibilities in it.
Yeah, I know. It puts a lot of pressure on us of how we are supposed to take care of each other, right? Like, because we have human rights, that which is owed to us by our humanity, we also have responsibilities for ensuring the rights of others. So it's not the most glamorous one. It's not the most obvious that jumps out at you, like the option for the poor and vulnerable, but it is very important. And each of these is very important. Yeah.
So I think the phrasing that confuses people most when they hear this is the option for the poor and vulnerable. So can you talk about what that means?
Yeah, so this means, and like slightly expanded, is the preferential option for the poor and vulnerable, right? Where we, in the laws that we pass in our society, in determining who benefits from the society itself, we should prefer the poor. We should defer to the needs of the poor. And the purpose for that is because Christ loved the poor, and Christ came to be with the poor, right? To be with the people who were rejected and excluded from society, and to bring them into society. And so we are called to do the same thing, to make sure that laws that we pass benefit and support the poor, not exclude them. And when you think of it from a more like sociological perspective, this makes sense, right? Because those who are rich, whether that's rich in power, rich in money, rich in accomplishment and status, right? They have what they need to be secure, and they have the means to secure what they need. The poor do not. And that's why we are responsible for setting up our community in a way that protects and uplifts them, because they don't have those access to means that other people already do.
So do you think like that element is kind of like probably what pushed you to be working for like universal childcare in the past?
No, it was my own personal experience with childcare that brought me into the fight for childcare. But in like many things, in experiencing an issue and learning more about it, come to find out the church has already talked about childcare and talked about making sure that families have access to affordable, high quality childcare so that they're able to support themselves. So yeah, no, my own personal experience with childcare was that when my first son was born, we didn't have any childcare, and I was working pretty much full time as a new college instructor, balancing mostly full-time caregiver responsibilities while also working full-time. My husband had a job that was customer service facing, so he could not help during the day. If he got a call, he couldn't be around a screaming baby. And so it just put me in the highest stress time of my life, trying to balance everything and feeling like I was failing at everything. And being in a rural area, there were not a lot of childcare options. And also being in an area where most women become stay-at-home moms, no one talked about childcare. So I didn't even know where to start, until ultimately, by the grace of the algorithm, got served a Facebook ad for a daycare in West Virginia, because we couldn't find a spot here on the side of the Ohio River.
That's crazy. How far is that for you?
It's not far. It's like 15 minutes.
Okay.
It was like 15 minutes round trip, but bonkers nonetheless that I can't get childcare in my own state.
And I think that's such a good like personal experience to kind of bring into this, because I work as an individual therapist, and I work with moms, and this is just like this pressure cooker situation that y'all get put into that is literally physically impossible to handle. That whenever I lived in Europe, it was a non-issue because moms had daycare and moms had more time off to be able to transition and actually feel comfortable leaving their child, because they felt like they had established that really good, tight relationship in that early stage. And American moms are just thrown into a fire. Like, just, you poor thing.
tell my husband all the time that we should move back to Canada before we have children, because you get, as long as you're working, you do have to be like working for a certain amount of time period before, but women in Canada get 1 year to 1.5 years off of work.
Well, and sorry, go ahead.
No, it's at a percentage of their pay, but childcare is expensive, so it's usually worth it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the paid family leave piece is a big piece of the childcare crisis itself, because we don't have any federal paid family leave system. The demand for childcare starts right away, right? When your baby is like 6 weeks old, as early as like 2 weeks old, really, but 2 weeks to 6 weeks old or 3 months, that's when the ratios are the lowest. Where, so, you know, you can only have one person watching 3 babies, which is stressful in and of itself. But it puts a demand on the system right away for the highest need age, most expensive age. So if a center has to close a room, they're going to close the infant room. And then the family is just totally out of luck. So anyhow, big part of solving the childcare crisis would be to pass paid family leave to relieve some of the burden for the first, ideally, you know, year to 2 years if mom and dad both get extensive time off. But that's a whole other podcast.
This is actually an issue that you are starting to see more support for on the right as well. Probably because it's just becoming untenable for people like our age to have families and support them. So I could probably spend the whole podcast talking about this because I think it's such a very interesting, like I really could, interesting topic.
But we'll shift it back to the
I'll come back another time and we can talk childcare.
What about like Catholic social teachings call Catholics to act in these times for immigrants?
Yeah, so that's where we get I mean, to act is like in and of itself its own thing. So right under the theme of call to family, community, and participation, that's where we see the compelling to respond to needs, right? To participate in our community, to build it up for others, to build it up for the common good, right? Not just the good of myself and my family, but also the good of all people in my community, to be actively engaged, is that piece about participation. Now, right now, oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. How do you think the Catholic Church defines community? Like, is it just the people that live right next door to me? Is it the people in my state? Like, how are we defining community?
I mean, I think the Catholic Church would define community in the same way that Jesus did, and who is my neighbor? And your neighbor is whoever needs it, especially in this increasingly international dependence, right? Where we are dependent on one another across countries for goods, for services, for our environment itself, right? Really, there's like a strong need to respond to your local community, but there's also a need to realize that everyone is part of our community. And when one part of the body of Christ suffers, we all suffer, which is a high pressure to put on us. But I think it can compel us to respond with more love and empathy to each other when we start to see all people and all suffering as our neighbor and our neighbor's suffering.
I just want to point out that I absolutely love that you are highlighting that the body of Christ encompasses the world. It encompasses the world.
Well, like my understanding is that we're taught that like if one part of the body is suffering, we're all suffering, right? So,
and I think when I was like taught about that, it was like put in the context of sin, right? If like one part of the body sins, it like hurts us all. But what happens when it's like one part of the body is being sinned against? We don't really talk about that as much or like think about it in that way. And so, yeah, I think looking at that passage and thinking more about what does it mean to all truly be part of one body of Christ. And if one part of the body is celebrating, let's celebrate with them. And if one is suffering, let's respond to that. In terms of the piece on immigration, particularly right now with the inhumane treatment of our immigrant brothers and sisters, documented, undocumented, right, with protected status, without protected status, everyone is at risk and feeling the stress of the situation. There's 3 main principles that inform the USCCB's response to immigration or understanding of immigration policy. And we cannot, sorry, I hope you guys didn't hear that loud car that went by. We cannot pick apart the themes and think about them independently, right? So the first theme or principle is that all people have the right to migrate to protect their security and the needs of their family, right? If you are in a country where there is a war, you have the right to leave that country to pursue security and safety. So that's that first one, is like the right to migrate, the right of all peoples to move. The second one is that countries have the right to regulate their borders and to regulate their immigration policies, right? They have the right to figure out how to let people in, what the conditions of that entrance are, what they have to do to be there, how many people can come, all that sort of stuff. So countries have the right to do that. Third one, though, and this is the one that gets skipped, I think, quite a bit, is that countries must regulate their policies with justice and mercy. And this is where I think things fall apart right now for the current administration, is when we see stories of people being taken from courthouses who are there for immigration hearings. Does that seem just? Does that seem merciful? I would say no. When we see, families being taken on their way to take their kids to school, does that seem just? Does that seem merciful? When we hear stories of the conditions of the detention centers in which people don't have access to clean water, and if they want clean water, they have to pay for it, money that goes to a private corporation, or their food is moldy or filled with maggots, or they don't have access to doctors, and so they are literally dying in detention centers from preventable diseases, or when they are released, they're being dropped off in the middle of nowhere to die. Is that just? Is that merciful? And if the answer is no, Catholics need to respond. And that's where I think we're at right now and have been for quite some time. And, this isn't a new problem. There have been issues with every administration because the issue of the treatment of the immigrant is not a new one to the United States. It's been happening since the beginning. But it just changes form with time. So that's...
Nor is this treatment solely being pushed at immigrants. We have U.S. citizens that have been detained. We have had Native Americans that have been detained or in detention. And like this example that you gave of people being dropped off in the middle of nowhere, sometimes without coats and things like that, that's a practice that's been happening for a long time towards the Native populations in Canada and the United States. I can't remember what the term is. If you guys know it, please say it. But there's a term for that, like where they would literally just purposely drop people off in the middle of nowhere without proper clothing on. So they're going to die, right? Unless a miracle happens, they're going to die because it's freezing outside.
Yeah, it's not new. The treatment we're seeing is not new, right? If you look through historical political cartoons, which is one of my favorite things to do with students, the discrimination against immigrants has been longstanding. They've long time been the scapegoats for problems in the United States, problems that they don't actually cause nor contribute to, but nonetheless, they receive the brunt of it. And so again, comes down to when we see a situation, rather than seeing it through the lens of our favorite social media influencer, our favorite political pundit, seeing it through these lens of, is this just? Is this merciful? And if the answer is no, then maybe we need to adjust our perspective or opinions on what we previously held to be okay.
Amen.
Amen. Yes. I recently saw something that said, it's not what would Jesus do, it's what did Jesus do? And I think if we look at the example of Jesus, he would not have condoned this. There's a lot of people that make the argument that this is happening because they're trying to get rid of the quote unquote worst of the worst. What would you say to that?
It's not true, right? Like most people being held in detention facilities right now have no criminal record or have no violent criminal record, like a traffic ticket or something, right? The bar that the Trump administration set, what they promised of how many deportations they were going to achieve in the first year, they were never going to achieve by only deporting, violent criminals. Like they said, they were going to go after everyone. And so it's simply not true.
When y'all are kind of getting together and collaborating. So for example, I'm only going to remember the information that I do know. So at the meeting that we were in, you started to ask about feast days, which by the way, give me a reason to get involved in feast days. I love that. But tell me a little bit about what does the Dorthea Project actually look like in action? Like, what does it look like to join and be a part of this super cool movement?
Yeah, absolutely. So to understand our organizing strategy, first, which I hate to start with strategy, but it makes it make the most sense. So we are trying a bottom-up and a top-down approach to moving the Catholic Church into stronger solidarity with people whose rights are being violated. Okay. And so the bottom-up strategy is get the lay Catholics educated on Catholic social teaching and then into action, right? And so that could look like starting a chapter, right? To bring Catholic social teaching education to your community, to start engaging in dialogue, because we really need to be able to dialogue with each other better and listen to each other better and hear each other's stories and why they think the way that they do and what impacts them and all that. So step one could be a chapter, could be saying, I want to ask my parish priest to do a Catholic social teaching discussion night. Or it could be doing outside of a parish if that's not an option for someone for whatever reason, doing it from their own home or community center, what have you. Get the lay Catholics educated and into action. And one of the ways to get Catholics into action is through these feast day actions that we have been coordinating and planning and mobilizing on. Feast days are really key days for religious institutions to make their faith known, right? To educate on something and to show resistance or solidarity for a specific purpose. So the way that
just in case we have non-Catholic listeners, can you explain what a feast day is?
Sure. A feast day is a significant day in the church's calendar that the church has designated as special. So, for example, Easter or Christmas or the Chair of Peter, or for us, the days that we've mobilized on, or are St. Maximilian Kolbe, who was a Catholic priest during the Nazi regime, died in a concentration camp after sacrificing himself. So we mobilized on that day, that feast day. Another feast day that we did was the Feast of the Conversion of St. Paul, who famously persecuted Christians before converting and becoming a Christian. And so we held public witnesses on that feast day to pray for the conversion and repentance of ICE agents and the protection of immigrant communities.
Actually, and then the most recent... that was the first thing I did, but it was just a social media post. Yeah, that was my first action. Yeah.
Yeah. For our, the most recent one we did was for St. Oscar Romero, who's the Archbishop of San Salvador, who was famously martyred while saying Mass after speaking vehemently, I think that's how you pronounce that word, against the authoritarian regime in El Salvador. And the way that we like to feast days is as a way to share Catholic teaching on a specific topic, right? To educate Catholics in a way they might not have known before, and to make our witness public, right? To bring it into the public sphere. And so we typically have a couple different ways for people to do that, usually like a social media option, share a post, call someone, join a Zoom and say a prayer and make calls together. And then public and private witnesses, gathering people that you know in your church or in your home to pray and to talk about the feast, or gathering them publicly, right? Like you did, Nicole, like in front of the Capitol building, or in front of a detention center, or in front of some other significant public spot.
All the credit to my co-organizers there, because it was mostly their people.
Shout out to them. Yeah. Shout out to them. So those are ways that people can get involved in the bottom-up approach, right? Is educate, join in, take action together, and help get other people to take action as well. And we also have a top-down approach that we're going for, which is trying to move the bishops into stronger solidarity, because the Catholic Church is a hierarchy, and if you want to move the church, you got to move the leaders as well. And so our first action as an organization or as a group was writing letters to our bishops, asking them to be in stronger solidarity and to take some sort of action for immigrants in our communities. Since then, we've done a couple different iterations of Contact Your Bishop, right? We did one leading into the November gathering of the bishops to ask them to vote to rewrite or update the USCCB's voter guide. It's called Forming Consciences for Faithful Citizenship. So we asked them to review that and update it. And then we also did another round of asks for the Feast of St. Oscar Romero to speak publicly. And we did get one bishop who recorded a video for us to post. Bishop John Stowe of Lexington made a video for us about St. Oscar Romero, and we got to post it. And so that was our first bishop partnership, which was very exciting. But more so since we first started this, we've started to see the bishops be quicker to respond when there are things that need responding to. Bishops who otherwise might have said nothing, bishops in rural states or red states becoming more comfortable sharing. And we always try to give them lots of accolades and support when they do that, because it does take courage to speak a message that your flock hasn't heard before. But that's what this flock needs, is we need clear leaders. And so we believe very strongly in trying to get bishops into stronger solidarity alongside with us. So that's Megan, to give you the what's going on of the Dorthea Project.
Awesome. Very helpful. And I think really, really clear messaging for our listeners as to why they need to get involved.
The Dorthea Project, there are a couple different ways to do that too. We have like committees for women to join, because we're all about breaking down the work, sharing the load, non-hierarchical, etc. So whatever your interest is, we have a theology and catechetics committee, organizing and outreach, social media and marketing, and intercessory. So we got something for everyone across those four.
We always like to remind people that any action is better than no action. So don't strive for perfection. Like, even if the only way that you participate is by giving like one phone call or telling your dumb brother what Catholic social teaching is or something like that, any action is better than no action.
I don't know whose brother she could be referring to.
I love you. You happen to be listening to this. I don't think he knows I have a podcast because I haven't heard anything yet. I'm sure I would. I do want to go back a little bit. So for people who aren't Catholic or people who are outside the United States, you're saying like this Catholic social teaching, right? It's part of what Catholics teach. Why is it then that we have bishops who aren't publicly aligning themselves with Catholic social teaching, or what we would expect them to? Are they interpreting it differently? Are there different political demands you think that are pulling them? And if you don't know, it's okay. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I cannot. I could speculate for why certain specific bishops say or don't say things, but I won't because that's just speculation. But I will say, like, I think it's worth noting that when the bishops released their pastoral statement on immigration after the November plenary, almost all of them voted in support of it. Like, I think 4 abstained from voting. We don't know why. Maybe they thought it didn't go far enough. Like, we don't know. But other than that, all of them voted in support of it. So there's something happening. Can't speculate as to why, some bishops say more and some say less.
How many bishops there are in the USCCB?
I want to say less than 200, but I don't know.
Yeah, because I've heard the stat 95%. So that basically tracks.
Yeah. It was an impressive, during the plenary, we were closely watching it because we knew they were going to be doing something. And then we also knew they were going to be voting on a new president. So it was funny, like Dorthea Project ladies were like, they just did the first round of voting, like no winner yet. Like it was very like election night.
I was so happy when I saw that. And I was like, this is what I want to see from the Catholic Church. And indeed, we have seen more and more. And even some bishops that have been considered to be more on the right have stepped across that aisle to back Catholic social teaching. So I do want to give like huge shout outs to seeing that happen. Even like a very like right-wing favorite, Bishop Strickland, spoke out against the war recently. So, which is in line with Catholic social teaching and the dignity of the human person. If it's not clear from what Pope Leo has been saying.
Like, what do y'all feel like is the dream for the Dorthea Project? Like, and I actually put a little bit of a, like, where would you like to see y'all's selves in like 2 years? I say 2 years because anything past that just seems illogical because every day is just a new surprise. But like, ideally, what's the dream?
Yeah. I think the dream is just getting local. Is really what it comes down to. Like I had set the goal of 100 chapters by the end of the year.
Where are we at?
Where are we at? I would say solidly 10 right now. Like 10 that I'm like, you're a chapter. You're doing it. So we're getting there. And so yeah, 100 chapters, and like a quick response network of people talking to each other and engaging with issues. And really the dream is having chapters or local communities or whatever responsive to what is happening in their communities. Because there is so much happening locally that should be a concern to Catholics, whether that's bringing in new AI data centers or creating new detention centers, or turning old warehouses into detention centers, right? Things that are happening locally that are much more fly under the radar. But if we have built up a network of Catholics who are in line and on board with Catholic social teaching and connected with each other, we can be much more responsive and much more powerful and effective in creating change and in bringing heaven to earth. So it's not a very like concrete, what's the dream for the next 2 years, but that's the dream nonetheless. Is Catholics organized is really what it comes down to.
So during our last meeting, you asked us what we really want our churches to look like, something to that effect. And I'm curious because at the beginning of this, you mentioned kind of nerves around organizing Catholics, which I think for those of us that kind of fall on the more progressive side of Catholicism, not to use a political word, but like people who fall more towards the Catholic social teaching side of things, we understand because there is kind of one narrative that's really broadly pushed here in the United States. But like, how are you feeling now? Do you still feel that way in your local parish, or are you feeling more comfortable yourself, or any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have always felt comfortable in my views and values and beliefs because having been educated on Catholic social teaching, I know I'm not doing anything contrary to what the church teaches. And so that might make people uncomfortable. And it might be hard to change like their perspective on worldviews or what they thought was good and okay versus not good and not okay. But I've never been like worried that anyone could accuse me of being not Catholic or improperly Catholic. I also had someone from my parish joined, which is very exciting.
I recall her saying that in the last meeting.
Yeah, so our my parish in particular, the last time Leo did a call for Vigils for Peace, someone that I know like reached out to my pastor and said, "Can we do a holy hour?" And he said yes. So locally, I feel okay. Might make waves. But my bigger question is like, what will it take for other Catholics to feel okay trying to do something? And usually that comes down to, I don't want to do it alone, which is fine. And so it's, how do we find your person? If they're already in the Dorthea Project, we'll get you in touch with each other. If they're not, how do we find them? So
I live in a red state, and me and my friend we went up to the podium to start the rosary together, but unfortunately her daughter wasn't really quite set on that idea, so I ended up by myself up there, and I'm standing there, and I am nervous because I'm standing in front of a room full of like people were coming in. That church gets very full. People were still coming in like during it, so there's probably more than 100 people at one point, and I'm like, I know a lot of these people probably voted for Trump. I know many of these people would say you can't be a Democrat and be Catholic, which is not true, but that like I've heard that many times in my life, like the two ideas are incompatible. And I understand that from people who are pro-life, except I don't understand why it stops at that one issue because like Republicans are notorious for supporting the death penalty. But it is nerve-wracking. And so like I don't think I would have done that without the support of my friend.
It matters which is why organizing for me is the answer, right? Like if you're one person trying to like chop down a tree, it's going to take you a long time or you're going to give up, right? If you've got 10 people trying to chop down a tree, someone might get hit with an axe, but I don't know why I picked this analogy, but it's going to go a lot faster and it's going to be a lot easier and you might have fun doing it and you're going to be surprised when you see the change happen, right? That's why organizing is the answer. Is like alone, we are not very effective. And we are prone to give up, but together we build a community that's focused, that is powerful, that is effective, and it makes all the difference.
And I think that's a very Catholic ideal, right? Like Jesus saying, like, wherever two or more are gathered, right? Like, I think there's always, like, from the beginning, we've had a push towards community, and that I think that's something that we've kind of lost in the United States. And I don't think I'm revolutionary for saying that. And I like, as Meg pointed out, I like how the meetings for the Dorthea Project, we always have a chance to talk to people. Like we go out into little break rooms, so you might be talking to different people each time, but that's nice too, because you get to hear perspectives from California and from Vermont and from Texas. Like there are Dorthea Project members all over the country already, which is really impressive. Good job.
So people answering, right? It's like women saying, oh, I'm not, like, I thought I was alone and thinking something was wrong, and now I realize I'm not. So now I'm emboldened to like step forward and want to do something, right? It's everyone saying yes that creates the change. And you can follow us on Instagram, Dorthea Project, the Dorthea Project. You can find us on our website, dortheaproject.com. I highly recommend, though, not just checking out our website and not just following us on Instagram, but if you go on our website, you'll see a link to an interest form. That's how you get on our email list. That's how you get invited to meetings, like all that stuff. So take the one extra step of fill out the Google form so you can really be connected with the community. Our general meetings are, like I said, the first Thursday of the month at 8 p.m. Eastern. You do have to register for those. And the general meetings are for Catholic women only, because we're a women-led organization, which we didn't even get into. But we're a women-led organization, but men are still welcome to support, come to actions with the women who are planning them, or join our prayer meetings. We do those frequently.
Well, how has God blessed you this past week?
Oh my gosh. I love this question. I have two. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. The first one is this is a little bit of a story. I mowed the lawn for the first time ever. I've never mowed a lawn before, having been one of three brothers, and like having a dad. But I mowed the lawn this weekend. And while I was mowing the lawn, I was like by the side of the road and wasn't like looking behind me at like coming traffic. And I like stepped out into the road and a car went right by me, like right at that moment. And like truly so close to hitting me at like 40 miles per hour, or over how fast they were going. And I truly believe the Lord protected me in that moment. Like the Lord, my guardian angel, someone did something.
Thank
and
God,
like
someone was working overtime.
Yeah, truly. And I was like, should be looking behind myself. And then my husband pointed out, like, you should face the direction of traffic when you're mowing the lawn. And I was like, it's good to know. So that's the first thing. Protected from maybe a pretty bad car accident. The second thing also has to do with my husband is this week we celebrated 10 years together, which is
happy anniversary.
Thank you. And we went out to a really nice dinner. So it was both amazing dinner and also getting to celebrate our relationship. And he's my biggest supporter. He believes in me more than I believe in myself. So it's great to have him along on the ride. And there's the cat.
There's Moose.
I have two cats, but my other one has no interest in being on a podcast.
Moose wants to be famous.
Meg, what about you? How's God blessed you this week?
So God bless me. So our area, we live in a tiny rural town, y'all. This is like not a big deal, but for whatever reason, speaking of lawns, like your lawn has to be like pristine or the city loses its mind. But the trick is finding a good, reliable person to do the lawn. and we found someone. And whenever I came home from church on Sunday, the entire place, like you're talking like old leaves, everything, like it was like pristine. And that just felt like the biggest weight off of my shoulders to just come home from church and just see like it's done. And that felt great. So I'm going to say that was one of my big blessings this week, was just feeling like a weight was taken off of my shoulders, because I don't want to get tickets because I have tall grass.
They do the
valid.
same thing here. I don't think they enforce it like equitably, but you can get a ticket from the city here if your lawn's too long.
What about you, Nicole?
I think my biggest blessing this week was getting to watch one of my coworkers dress up as a witch and ice skate. She does figure skating for fun. And so they had their like ice show. She's an adult, but she started like college or something. But that was actually really fun. I really enjoyed it. There were some other coworkers there, and we had a good time. So I felt like that was a good blessing this week. I also, not to be too corny, but this conversation has been quite a blessing. I'm so happy we got to interview you, Katie, and like learn more about the Dorthea Project, and hopefully our listeners will learn more about the Dorthea Project as well. Please let us know if any of you join. I would love to know.
Give a shout out in the interest form if you join through Catholic, not fascist. I would love that.
And if you're already a part of the organization, please leave your comments below about some fun experiences you've had with the Dorthea Project.
That would be amazing. That'd be wild.
Great. Well, thank you all for listening, and please remember to stay Catholic,
not fascist.